Hello, everyone out there. We are live and welcome to this edition of RUBBERBAND Live. Today we're talking about technology recruitment in 2023 and the fact that it's not all doom and gloom. Before I introduce the panelists, I would just like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land of which I live and work on. They are the Wadawurrung and Dja Dja Wurrung people. I recognise their continued connection to the land and waterways, and I pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and I extend this to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. But thank you. We're joined today, and thank you everyone out there that is watching, whether you're watching on Facebook, LinkedIn or YouTube. Welcome to RUBBERBAND Live if you've never joined before. Please do pop any questions and comments for the panel in the chat boxes. We can read them all, whatever channel you're on. And yes, thank you, Natalie, James and Narissa. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm absolutely delighted to talk to you about this really I guess important topic and so wonderful that we're really taking a positive view. We're injecting some positivity into what's been a really challenging year for a lot of people. So thank you so much for joining. And I'd love to have you introduce yourself. So why don't we go around the room. We'll start with Natalie. Tell us a little bit about yourself, a bit of a summary of who you are and a little bit about your role.
Thank you so much. This is my first panel discussion, so I'm a little bit nervous, but thanks so much for the opportunity as well, Eden. But as Eden said, I'm Natalie. I'm a specialist Java recruitment consultant at Circuit. So I've been recruiting for about 2.5 years. And in that time, I've really tried my best to really embed myself in the community and in the Australian market. So I really like to get involved in meetups, specifically, the Java-centered one. So we sponsor the Melbourne Java meetup, and I've even hosted that, which has been really cool. And I volunteer for organisations like Girls in Tech, and really, really big on video content on LinkedIn as well. So starting some video series around that are designed to educate my network about all things recruitment and technology. So that's me.
Oh, fantastic. And look, thank you for everything that you do for the local Australian talent acquisition industry. You're always there with a big smile on your face and injecting so much energy. Every time I go to a meetup, you're there. So thanks, Natalie. Awesome work. And James, welcome today. Great to meet you.
Hey, same Eden. Thanks very much for having me. So a quick bit about myself. I've been in the recruitment and talent space in Melbourne for just over 8 years now. Started off as an agency recruiter for about 5 years and then made the switch into internal sort of talent management, which it was a really interesting move for me, sort of being able to really connect with a business, sort of their values, their purpose, their objectives, and translating that into talent strategies and helping them achieve their goals through internal mobility, external recruitment, talent management, things like that. So just really passionate about fair processes, equity in interview processes, and helping businesses achieve their goals through the people that they hire and the people they have on board.
Oh, that is so wonderful. And how long has it been since you transitioned from agency recruitment to internal recruitment?
Yeah, you probably could have mentioned that. I made the move about 3 years ago. So I've been at Papercut now for that whole time. So Papercut, where I work now as a senior talent partner, is my first gig in internal talent. And it's sort of been going really well.
Fantastic. Oh, congratulations. We're all, so Narissa, myself, we're both, we've worked in agency as well, and Natalie works in agency. It's so great to have such a breadth of experience here and knowledge to be sharing. And Narissa, welcome. So great to see you.
Thanks, Eden. Hello, everyone. Thanks to Eden for organizing this and bringing our community together as well. It's been great. I am in Gold Coast. Just acknowledge that I'm on the land of the Kumamberi families of the Yungambe language region. And I'd like to pay respect to their elders, past, present, and future. I've been working in recruitment for roughly about 7 years. I think this is my 7th year in recruitment. I have a background in organizational development and DEI as well. I currently work as a senior talent acquisition partner. I'm focused ANZ region, but also hire for UK and Europe, which has been really interesting to do for this company. And I currently work at a software company called Marigold. They are essentially a digital marketing software company based in the US. And yeah, I hire for all technical and non-technical roles as well. I did also make my transition. So I've worked in that RPO and a staffing agency, and then made my transition into internal roughly about 3 years ago as well.
Oh, fabulous. Fabulous. What a great panel we have today. So thank you once again. Let's talk about what's been going on in 2023. It's been very different. I was recruiting in technology as well in 2022. I haven't been this year. And I think in some regards, I think I'm a little bit lucky that I haven't been, because it's been a very challenging year. So look, there's a lot of noise out there. I'm reading a lot of content. As I said, I'm not actually on the tools this year, but I'm reading a lot of what's happening. From your perspective, and we'll go around the room, you know, what is happening in the technology sector in 2023? Natalie, I might start with yourself. What are you seeing out there?
Yeah, and obviously my perspective is obviously agency-based, which can be a little bit different to the internal side of things. But I'm seeing that the economic downturn has definitely affected us, but it has affected us differently to the US and the UK market. And we're seeing a really interesting, almost like a weird balance between layoffs and hiring. And this shift is all happening under guises of company restructuring. So that's kind of what it's being like marketed as, I guess, if you're going to market layoffs. But what you're going to see is, you know, people are being laid off in one team of the company, but then in another team, the company might be needing to grow. So they're hiring in that area. So it's not just all about cost cutting here in Australia. Companies are trying to figure out where to put their money so that they can turn the most profit and look to the future in the next financial year post-pandemic. And from an agency perspective, it does make it a little bit harder to partner with clients when companies are trying to cost cut. So we do have to try and come up with other ways to add value other than sending CVs across to people. So those sorts of things include cutting through the noise, picking the speed up for them, helping them propel their recruitment needs a lot faster, freeing up hiring managers to do their jobs other than the recruitment side of things, really taking that consulting piece as seriously as possible, and you know, coming in with proper advice on how they can better their recruitment process. So, you know, I think we've just come out of a place where it was all about go, 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 send me as many CVs as possible because I don't have any. Whereas now companies are like, I've got plenty of CVs. So, you know, why do I want to pay a fee for your help? And so I think that's sort of where we need to come from as agency recruiters in this market, is what other value can we add other than sending over as many CVs as possible.
Yeah, for sure. Just before I go over to James, I just want to acknowledge a comment that came up here from Fan. Thank you so much for sharing. Fan's perspective there was some overhiring in 2022, restructuring in 2023, laying off employees by the US tech giants, etc. has you know, really impacted what's been going on. So thanks so much for sharing that, Fan. Sorry, I just shared someone else's. Sorry about that. So James, tell me, what are you hearing out there from your perspective? You know, all that noise that's happening in the technology sector. What do you think is happening?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And I think to follow on from Natalie's perspective, from an internal talent perspective, as well as I think helping our stakeholders and hiring managers sort of recognize who they should be hiring. It's about working with them to really ensure we're getting the most out of the people that we do have as well. So as Fan said in his comments, sort of massive focus on external hiring, optimizing recruitment processes, conversion rates, getting more people into the business was the highlight of 2022. Now it's sort of done a 180, and it's, you know, less about how do we get our name out there, how do we sort of attract more candidates. It's about how do we sort of better sort of get better at workforce planning, get better at sort of creating efficiencies within the business, making the most of identifying our key talent and making the most or getting the most out of them. In order to sort of, unfortunately tighten the purse strings a little bit when it comes to headcount and budgeting. So yeah, I think that sort of shift has been a massive one in, I think, talent roles this year. Changing from being very externally focused to very internally focused, giving, finance and HR the confidence in sort of what recruitment we are doing, what activities talent partners are doing. It's been a big shift there for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Really interesting. Thank you so much, James. Really interesting comment just has popped up from David. Thank you so much for sharing. David's organisation is going through a lot of change, and the focus is setting up for the future. So everyone, doing the same thing. So that's a really great perspective too, David. Thank you so much for sharing. How about yourself, Narissa? What are you noticing out there? What are you hearing in the tech sector this year?
Yeah, so to touch on what James said, it's more about focusing on doing proper workforce planning. And I think a lot of companies are now trying to learn from their mistakes and realign and figure out which projects and teams, to what Natalie said, they're still hiring, but on certain teams where they feel like they can actually make the correct investments and put in the right time in terms of hiring. So definitely, focusing more on that. And there are also a lot of companies that haven't done layoffs. So for example, for us, a big one in Australia is Canva. They're a huge tech company here and they haven't done any. And as of mid-March, they said they have no plans to do any further layoffs. So they're really focusing on retention and still doing hiring as well. And then there are also a few startups here in Australia. I wouldn't know as much about the US, but here in Australia, we have a few startups that have received funding late last year, early this year. There's a biotech startup called Ulu, who received about $8 million in funding. And then there's also Zetifi. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, but they also just received $12 million in funding for their Series A, and they essentially do long-range Wi-Fi solutions for remote areas. And so there's still companies out there, there's still opportunities coming up. I think it's just about a chance for, especially as candidates, to kind of keep up to date on what's going on in seeing the trends in the tech industries and really focusing on organizations that have that focus on retention and that we know are financially viable. And, with startups coming and getting their new funding, there'll be new opportunities coming up in terms of jobs as well. So trying to focus on that, because there's definitely not all tech companies just like only doing layoffs. There are organizations out there that are growing. So there are definitely opportunities coming slowly, but it's definitely happening.
Absolutely. And I think where talent teams are focusing, and there's quite a few comments coming up in the chat boxes as well around, effective workforce planning or looking at your EVP, reviewing benefits in a post-pandemic world, I see up there as well. I think, that kind of work is suggesting that, things are going to change. The market is going to shift. So I'm interested to hear from your perspective when we're hearing all of this noise around layoffs, and it's very, very stressful. There's a lot of, negative content being shared. How do we stop listening to that noise? How do we stay focused on the positives? Like, how have you each managed to stay afloat during, I guess, these market challenges? Natalie, I'll kick off with you.
Yeah, I think obviously for me, coming from an agency perspective might be a little bit different, because obviously a lot of, I think an agency recruiter's happiness can come from how busy they are. And when things tend to slow down a little bit, the mindset changes and you can start to feel a little bit more negative about yourself, about your desk, about how you feel, and about, your capabilities as a recruiter. So I think get back to your core values and reminding yourself of your core values can really help you cut through the noise, because everybody has core values, and if you integrate them into your job, then you fuel your job satisfaction. So, once you are clear on what your values are and how you want to bring them to the table, you can start workshopping how you're going to implement them into your work. And for me, my core consist of community and compassion. So I like to remind myself of that when I'm journaling or when I'm practicing mindfulness, because I guess on a personal note, I have had to refocus my mindset a little bit. It's, why do I do what I do? It's all about relationships and service to others for me. So I think, maybe this next few quarters isn't about building the biggest. Maybe I have to shift my priorities to other numbers, like how many relationships can I spark this year?
Mm-hmm.
How many old contacts can I reach out to this week? Shifting that metric can bring a lot more job satisfaction back into your life, because, if you're going against the grain and you're not able to get those stats, it can be really, really hard to motivate yourself. So instead, looking at it as, how many relationships have I built this week? That can be really fulfilling when you get to the end of the week and you feel like you've really solidified a few great relationships for the future, because it's impossible to be completely unaffected when a downturn happens. Sorry. Of course, you'll lose a few roles here and there, but what I haven't lost is the relationships that I've built with clients and candidates, and they will still be there when the market picks up. And for me, creating relationships is the best part of the job. So it's been really fun to refocus on that. And, from a team perspective, I would say that, to communicate with your team, because at the end of the day, you're probably all experiencing a really similar, dip. And so, just knowing that you're not alone and having support of the people around you. I know that that's massive at Circuit. We really, really do have that camaraderie, and we all talk to each other and communicate it and lift each other up. And that's been massive in helping us keep that momentum going, even when things are just that little bit slower.
I think that's amazing advice for all recruiters out there, whether you are agency or internal. It's focusing on, values, it's focusing on relationships, it's focusing on connections, and that will last forever, right? So that's amazing advice. Thank you so much, Natalie. James, tell me, how do you feel that we should stop listening to the noise and focus on the positives, and how have you managed to stay afloat during the market challenges?
Yeah, so I'll start off by saying I've been very fortunate to have not been affected by any of the tech layoffs. No one at Papercut has either. We've sort of, actually grown, had our highest period of growth over the last 3 months that we have in the last few years, which I'm very grateful to have been a part of. But I know that the talent and recruitment industry has been hit hard by layoffs. Of course, if companies are sort of reducing headcount, then there's less need for recruitment, so less need for recruiters and talent people. So it's hit us directly, unfortunately. And of course, that's been an awful thing to witness. But I actually have been really blown away by how much everyone in the industry has got behind each other, and sort of all the inspirational posts on LinkedIn, and how much everyone's lending so much of their time and thought and effort to helping each other out, lift each other up. All these sort of posts about, it's not you that's been made redundant, it's the role that was made redundant, and all the, I think, openness and that's, really real vulnerability that I'm seeing all over LinkedIn has been a massive positive to come out of this. So, I think, that's one of the biggest positives that could possibly come out of it. But also, I think for those of us that have been lucky enough to remain in our roles, I think it's, for me, been a great opportunity to grow. Sort of coming from agency into talent, one of the biggest learning curves for me was, not just going external to hire every single role as quickly as possible, switching that mindset from recruiter to sort of business partner. And sort of this, I think, is an opportunity for us to sort of get out of that tactical mindset that we've been in for the last year or two, which has been hard and fast, repeat process, recruit, take a step back, be more strategic, ask your business, what do you actually need? Sort of with this, 180 that's gone from hard and fast recruitment to, the opposite. Figure out what your business needs and adapt to add the value that, your stakeholders are really asking for. And I think that's a skill that you can take anywhere. And sort of being able to do that will yeah, really, it has helped me grow professionally quite a lot. The sort of different kind of stakeholder management skills that I've employed, the different areas of the business that I've been talking to, how I've been talking to them. It's just been, a really interesting shift for me.
Excellent. And I think, the market will change, right? And I think, it's really wonderful. What's resonated with me is, you've changed the way you work, and you won't be losing sight of that. You're going to be working a lot more effectively. And I also love what you talked about in terms of, community and people being generous and supporting each other and pulling together, and, that camaraderie, I suppose. And I think it's really important that we don't lose sight of that as well when the market shifts, that we really do continue to celebrate, that gift of generosity, and to continue helping people when we will be in a different situation in the future. How about yourself, Narissa? Tell me, how do you feel that we should stop listening to that noise, and how have you managed to stay afloat during the market challenges?
Yeah, I think Natalie and James brought a lot of good points, so I don't have too much to add, but I will say it can be difficult, of course, if you've been working in tech a long time and have been severely impacted by the layoffs. I have friends who weren't only laid off once, but twice, and after going through that, it's very difficult to go back into tech because you'll never feel that job security. But I do think that it's important to kind of keep focus on organizations. And I see a lot of comments coming up as well, talking about more mid-sized companies. So, I think they're actually a little bit more stable and less risky, as I think Laura said, as a startup, to be able to kind of grow your career. And as James said, like, recruitment teams have actually also been heavily impacted. So we're very lucky that we still currently have our jobs. So just keeping in mind that maybe not going for, the typical FANG companies that everyone kind of runs towards, but looking at other organizations that are also doing like good work, but more stable in terms of their finances. At my company, it's more about just really looking at every position with a microscope and making sure, do we really need this role before opening it up? And to James' point, there are also internal opportunities for staff as well. So looking internally and seeing where can we move people, where can we help people grow. I also know there are a couple of companies that instead of letting go of their recruiters, they just redirected them to other departments so that they can do other work, because, our jobs are transferable to things like customer success or sales. So a lot of companies have done that too, and not just with recruiters, but with other positions as well. So offering them opportunities to move into other departments rather than just laying off their talent, because, the same thing happens. It's kind of like a cycle. They lay off all their staff, and then a couple of years later, they start hiring recruiters and they start hiring a lot of people again, and it keeps happening. So to prevent that, just being a little bit more smart about how you're hiring. And again, with the workforce planning, just making sure, you're really assessing positions before opening them up. I'd rather an open position close than hiring someone for that role and then having to lay them off. So it's definitely a positive in that end. And I think we hope that companies learn from this and in the future really get smarter about their hiring and how they go about it as well.
Yeah, and wonderful to hear that, and yes, the talent acquisition industry has been, quite heavily impacted, during role redundancies. And it's wonderful to hear that that's not, I guess the blanket approach, that there are organisations that redeployed their talent acquisition teams into other roles, whether it be customer service or human resources, or I hope if this ever occurs again, that we hear more of those case studies and the successes of what those talent acquisition teams have been able to bring to an organisation when they've been deployed. James gave really great examples of how his role has changed when the hiring is not as heavy, and he's become a much better talent professional, which is wonderful. I just want to share, there was a comment from one of our Facebook users here, just a really positive story around a professional service consultancy that is really, they're focused on retention and always hiring for growth, and they have a great culture. So it's really great to hear some of those really positive tech company stories out there. So thank you so much, Facebook user. I'm not sure who you are, but, really appreciate it. So let's go into, I suppose, predictions. So we're about to, I can't believe I'm saying this, but half the year's nearly over. So we're about to go into new financial year. I don't know where it went, but tell me what predictions, do you see happening over the next 6 months within the technology sector? Natalie, what do you, and this isn't, this is
not
crystal
ball.
Yeah.
I was like, no one hold me to this, but I can say what I'm hoping will happen. And I guess what I'm hoping will happen would be that, the new financial year will hopefully bring it just a little bit more stability, and hopefully companies will have the opportunity to reflect and go through some of their financials, figure out their budgets, and give, I guess, even agency recruiters a bit more of a platform to step in and help where it's viable. So hopefully there'll be a lot more clarity with, existing clients and new clients in the future about how we'll be able to help. There probably will still be a little bit of slowing. I don't think we're going to bounce back to, 2022 or 2021 ways of going about things. But I think the people who bring to light those strong and long-lasting relationships will be rewarded towards the end of the year or even middle of the year as those financials start to come out and companies have a lot clearer of a view of what they're going to be doing. And I think we're probably going to see, obviously, similar to what we've been seeing now, that balance out between jobs and employees for obvious reasons. But I'm hoping as well that we're going to see a change in job seeking behavior. And so we're going to have more motivated job seekers that are, rather than the opportunistic job seekers that we've been seeing over the last 2 years. And this will be a really welcome change for myself because obviously, and a lot of my agency friends, because, it can be really hard when you're really trying to do the best for the client, but you're maybe dealing with candidates who are just being a bit more opportunistic. I think we're going to be dealing with a lot more people who are really in it for the right reasons. And it's important for us to acknowledge, like I can see a really great comment from Fan again, talking about how, we have an essential role to play in helping people right now. Being able to bring that in and modifying our behavior to the job seeking behavior will be really important. So I'm hoping that's what's going to, the rest of the year is going to look like for us, a bit more positive.
Fantastic. I've got a question for you that's come up in the chat, Natalie, and I hope that's okay. Jinlai's just, and because you work with, a number of different organisations, have you seen it impact internships or graduate programs? Has there been any changes to those during, I suppose, where we do have a lot of candidates that are experienced, that are in the market looking for opportunities? Have you noticed any change to grad and intern programs?
I actually haven't. I would actually argue the grad and intern programs for the most part have been sort of going on as per usual. I think I actually made quite an effort this year to share grad programs on my LinkedIn profile. So if you are a grad in the chat, feel free to go and visit my LinkedIn profile and go back through some of the posts that I made in the last 3 to 6 months, because I did make a bit of an effort to share some of those more junior positions. But I found that, you just sort of, they come in waves anyway, because, you get your yearly intake or your, biannual intake and stuff like that. So different companies have their different ways of going about those intakes. I haven't found that they've been affected too much. They're pretty much being advertised as per usual. So Jinlai, keep an eye out. Feel free to connect with me afterwards and just keep an eye out on, other stakeholders who you think would be advertising those kinds of positions. They tend to happen though once or twice a year. So that's probably why you haven't seen as many. They've kind of just come and gone for the year, I would say.
Yeah, wonderful. And Laura's just, thank you, Laura White. Hello, and glad you joined us today. But Laura's just given some great advice in the chat box as well to make sure that, people do connect with businesses directly in terms of their internships and graduate programs as well. Because you're right, they're not things that are advertised throughout the year. They tend to be cyclical. So thanks so much for that advice too, Laura. James, predictions over the next 6 months. What do you predict?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Similar to Natalie, I don't. Well, I hope things that don't get much worse than they are at the minute. Perhaps a bit more of a stabilization, absolutely. And I think in response to sort of the, I guess, tumultuous situation that we've been in over the last couple of years, things going from 0 to 100 down to 0 again.
Yeah.
Sort of just to touch on what I mentioned earlier, an increased focus from organizations on organizational development and workforce planning to make sure they're getting or making the right decisions before even thinking about recruiting externally. And yeah, making the most of their people. So for talent professionals, it's going to be a lot of, I think, yeah, reviewing benefits programs, sort of retention, sort of looking at internal mobility, sort of processes, practices, sort of talent mapping, capability mapping, understanding from a strategic sort of point of view, connecting all of this with companies still want to achieve their objectives. So connecting the work we do to what the company wants to do will, yeah, sort of deliver a lot more value to them. And I think for talent people, people in talent, sort of, I guess, give us a lot more job security as well. But yes, sort of hopefully, I hope that organizations do connect this sort of retention work, benefits review work to values and things that are really important to them as well, rather than sort of throw money at the situation, which is kind of how we got into this problem in the first place. So really, again, sort of our role internally is to help them understand, yeah, their EVP, employer brand, sort of how that can feed into retention sort of initiatives as well. So they're sort of my Mystic Meg predictions.
Fantastic, love it. We're gonna keep that nickname for you now, mate. Awesome. Thanks so much, mate. Completely agree. And Narissa, what do you think? So let's have Narissa. You can be Mystic Meg now. What do you think over the next 6 months? What do you think?
I wish I could go in a time machine in the future and see what it's going to be like, but it is hard to predict these things. The economy is very volatile. There are always geopolitical aspects that you have to keep in mind, so you just never know. But I do agree with Natalie. I think things will stabilize a little bit more, hopefully in the second half of the year. If things kind of get better and inflation slows down, I do think that it'll get better for sure. And I do know that, post-financial year, a lot of companies will do a thorough review of where they want to focus in terms of their investments and which teams they really want to grow, which products they want to expand and, add new features to. So I do think there will be opportunities for people in terms of, joining tech companies. And as I said earlier, there's still a lot of startups getting funding, so that hasn't really stopped fully. So there'll definitely be further opportunities down the line. And I think it's been a difficult situation, but I think a lot of people have learned new things. The remote work has become more acceptable and more of a norm than something that companies don't like doing. And hopefully they continue that onwards. Like, I know my organization is not planning to go back to the office full time ever. So we really like that flexibility, and it's provided opportunities for, people with disabilities, people who are parents, to find more job options. So I think there have been positive things that have come out of this. So I feel like we're going to continue to grow and learn. And it's definitely helped from a retention perspective as well. And from a candidate perspective, you have more options for candidates if you're not stuck to a particular city. So, especially in Australia, in the US, it's been a little bit different, but in Australia, there still are some roles that are still hard to find. So, having that option ability has been great. So yeah, I think things are going to get better, hopefully, and hopefully we'll also continue to grow as well. And yeah, we'll see what happens.
Absolutely. And hopefully we do see this change in the next 6 months. I mean, the change will happen at some stage, but I think there are signs. I think you've all covered off that there are signs of a market recovery. And thanks so much for everyone with all your comments and questions. I'm finding it hard to keep up with them all, but I will answer as many as I can. And if I don't, I'll answer it after the event within the comment boxes. So let's focus now really on recruitment teams and the talent acquisition industry. For the rest of 2023, where do you see the opportunities for particularly technology recruiters? Where should they be focusing? A lot of people in that sector have been impacted, talent acquisition professionals. There are a lot of people, just like in technology, that are looking for work. Where do you feel that they should focus, right now and for the rest of 2023? Natalie, what do you think? What would your advice be?
I'm going to sound like a broken record, because I think for me, once again, the biggest opportunities out there for everybody is to focus on relationship building, because everybody's more open than ever to having those kinds of chats. I mean, just be there for people, there's so many people out there who are hurting. It's so important to spread that love and compassion towards them. I think people still do want to speak to agency recruiters. They just want to have a different conversation to the one that we're having over the last 2 years. I think in the last 2 years, the conversation's been how much money can you get me, and what opportunities are out there, and how quickly can we get somebody in. And now it's a lot more about what advice do you have for me? Where should I be looking? And there's a lot more of a compassionate route to it. And I've personally been really enjoying setting those new relationships into motion. I think that's one of the biggest areas that we've got, that agency recruiters should be taking opportunities to build those new relationships with. Even if you have been going on, just give people on the stern and struggling just 5 minutes of your time and attention and care, and I think they will remember it. Your perfect opportunity to join a community. So go to a few meetups that resonate with you. Get involved in volunteering. Girls in Tech are always looking for people to join their community, and I know there's a few really great meetups that are trying to gain some traction and get off the ground. So feel free to message me after this if you're interested in getting some inspiration on what meetups are out there that are really good to go to. And also, while you have a little bit of extra time, try and work on a bit of branding, whether it's company-wide or personal. Making videos and all that sort of stuff can really help. Maybe if you don't have as many roles on, if you work on improving your profile and your personal brand, it can actually make business development just that little bit less of a grind, and it can feel a lot more fulfilling when you're walking into a conversation feeling really confident about what you can bring to the table. So now's the time to take those opportunities while things are a little bit slow. Because hopefully the second half of this year will start to bring that momentum again. And if you work on those things now, then you'll be, in such a good position when things do build up, because now's the time to work on the things that you probably wouldn't otherwise give that attention to.
100%. And, given I run an online community, naturally, I agree with all of that. I think it's really important that, you do connect with community, but I think you're right. Like, I think, making sure that you focus on, your personal brand. What are your values? What do you want to share with that community? How can you help that community? And to continue doing that, it's really important, because I think, the more we pull together and the more we learn from each other and the more we grow and the more we support each other, the better humans we're going to be and the better recruiters we're going to be. It's just a really important place to focus. So I think that's wonderful advice, Natalie. Thank you. What about yourself, James? Where do you think for tech recruiters particularly, what do you think the biggest opportunities will be for them, and where should they be focusing at the moment?
Yeah, absolutely. Similar to Natalie, I'm going to echo a few points that I've already made, possibly. But in terms of recruitment agencies, absolutely agree with Natalie as well. Speaking from the internal perspective that engages with recruitment agencies, yes, the list of agencies that we work with has probably shrunk a little bit, but realistically that was due because the ones that we really connect with are ones that really want to understand who we are as a business, what our goals are, how we're going to achieve them, and then sort of them helping us find people to achieve those goals and execute on our strategy is sort of, just the final piece of the puzzle. The conversation doesn't start with what people do you need, it ends with what people do you need to do that. Which is, the sort of relationship that I really want to form with recruitment agencies, especially when the conversations I'm having internally with stakeholders and hiring managers is not really focused on hiring quite so much. It is much more about how do we get the most out of what we already have. So I would appreciate having fewer conversations about, who do you need on board externally as well. Within talent teams, as I said, sort of expanding your skills outside of recruitment, showing the value you can add to the business outside of, okay, what does the ideal person look like in this job? Let me go to LinkedIn Recruiter and find them. It's, partnering with finance, partnering with HR or whoever's the most relevant person to understand, what situation are we in? Sort of understanding from your leadership team, what do we want to achieve over the next few years? What does that mean for, put all that together, and how can I help with that? Sort of, does that mean that we need to retain more people? Does that mean that we need to look into more internal mobility? Does that mean, that we need to understand a bit more about the skills we have in the business? Show them that you are really valuable outside of, because a lot of our stakeholders don't fully understand what we do. They see talent partner, talent acquisition, everything. It all translates to recruiter for them, which is, should realistically be one tool in your toolkit. So I think adapting by sort of adding more tools to your toolkit, showcasing those, having conversations about them, is a big opportunity for internal recruiters for sure.
100%. I think, if you've got a little bit more time than what you've had, particularly last year and the year before, where things were so manic, to kind of learn those new skills, but also showcase them, to educate your hiring managers, to educate the business of the value that you can bring. It's a really great opportunity now to, future-proof the role of talent and the role that recruiters do play, and that what they can play in the future. I think that's wonderful advice, whether you're working in an agency or internal. Showcase your talents, stretch your capabilities, learn new things, and celebrate what you have learnt and what you can bring to the table. I think that's awesome advice. Thank you so much, James. Narissa, yourself, what do you think for, technology recruitment teams or, tech recruiters out there? Where are the opportunities and where should the focus be now?
I actually think there are still challenges with hiring in certain positions. People and hiring managers also assume because there've been so many layoffs, there'll be so many candidates available, but that's not really true for all positions. Especially in Australia, there are still non-tech companies hiring a lot. On LinkedIn, I look at it I think we all live on LinkedIn. I see it every day. There's so many opportunities coming up in various industries, roles, companies. So I think there are still tons of opportunities here. So for us, it's about reviewing our hiring processes, making sure they're efficient, and getting better as well. Sometimes it can be difficult I think a lot of people externally think it's all on the recruiter, but it's more a whole system within the business in terms of improving our hiring process. The hiring managers are also heavily involved in our process as well. So just trying to get back to candidates as fast as possible, and continuing to offer that flexibility to our workforce also helps. I know a lot of people were having kind of that debate in the comments, and really just open to hearing what the employees want rather than imposing on what the company thinks we want. So really, asking us and offering us that flexibility can also help in terms of hiring as well. And in terms of recruitment teams themselves or recruiters looking for work, I agree with James and just improving your skill set and expanding your network even outside of just recruitment. Volunteer on the side and things that you're interested in. Network with other HR people, with org development consultants. Expand your horizon and see where else you can kind of grow your skill set and how it can help apply to your current position and or your future role. Really also looking at companies where they match your values. So not necessarily chasing the money, which of course we all need to get paid a good salary, but also making sure that the values of the organization align with yours. Because as James said, like, people will throw money at you, but that means it could be possible down the line that then you're going to end up getting laid off because you're getting paid way too much above market. And that's kind of what happened to a lot of people as well. So really being mindful of that now, and not just going for, oh, this is the highest salary I can possibly get. But really also considering, like, what are the benefits they're offering? What are the additional flexibilities they're offering me? How can I make the most of my career growth too in this position? And how can I really develop myself through this company? And what opportunities can I find? So looking at other factors.
100%. Completely agree. Everything said there, I think, from all three of you was really wonderful advice. So thank you so much. Now, I have noticed we've run over time, so maybe just I'll go around the room, just a really quick summary from each of you. Final advice for the audience, Natalie.
Yeah, well, just mindset. Mindset's really important. Make sure that you're taking care of yourself. If you have inherently negative thoughts, try picking yourself up on it and pick a mantra that helps you get through this time and make the most of the market. Mine's positive impact, because I know that that's what I want to do with every single call and message that I have, and it helps me when I'm going into situations where I feel a bit nervous. Shift your metrics. So, a successful you in a slow market will look different to a successful you in a busy market, but both versions of you is valuable to your workplace and to your community. So, use that to your advantage. And I would say, lastly, fill your time with things that make you feel good. Take on extracurricular community involvement, and you think you'll be really surprised the networking doors that it opens up for you, and it will give you a really great outlet for your negative energy to replace it with really, really good feels. So, yeah. Best of luck to everyone as well.
Bless advice. Thank you so much, Natalie. James, final advice for the audience.
Very, very similar from me. Sort of be mindful that things can change in an instant. So I would just be ready to adapt and don't see adaptation and change as the enemy. See it as an opportunity. Because it's that resistance to change that creates a lot of stress more than anything. So, be open to adapt, keep your mind open, absolutely fill your days with joy, stay hydrated, and go to therapy if you can, because it changed my life.
Brilliant.
Absolutely. Thank you, James. That's wonderful advice. Thank you. And Narissa, final advice for the audience from you.
Yeah, so I know it's a difficult time for some people and it's hard to always stay positive. It's okay to be angry or sad at the situation, but really utilize your network, reach out to people who are working in the organizations you're interested in to get some insider insight. If you do reach out to a recruiter on LinkedIn, make sure you've applied to the job first so that we know and can see your application right after you reach out to us, because it happens to me a lot. Keep up to date on the tech news to find out what's happening out there in the tech world. Really just, even if you are still employed, keep working on your resume and updating it as you go, because you do tend to forget things that you've done in a role after you've left already.
Absolutely. Wonderful advice. Thanks so much, Narissa. And thank you so much to the panel today. This has been such a great session. So I really appreciate you joining today and sharing those nuggets of wisdom and providing that advice and support for the community. Also wanted to say a big thank you to everyone that's joined today. I don't think I've ever seen the chat box so active. So thank you so much, everyone out there. I have been reading your comments, and I'm hearing that you're really keen on a future panel on workforce workplace flexibility and one on AI and chat GPT. So I am GPT. I am listening, so I will set those up. Please do continue to follow Rubberband. So if you jump on rubberband.com.au, you'll find the details of our Facebook group. You'll find the details of our new Rubberband Connect platform, LinkedIn, YouTube. Follow. We'll be sharing lots of content moving forward. But again, thank you to every single one of you. I loved this session today. It was amazing. So thank you so much. And I hope everyone has an amazing afternoon. Or all the people over in the US, it's probably amazing morning. Thanks again, everyone.
Thanks, Eden.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.